Welcome, everybody. Um, just as an FYI, this meeting is being recorded, and we will post all of our office hour sessions onto our YouTube channel, which is also accessible via the Homes for LA NOFA webpage. Um, I'm just going to get started. I think we have other people registered, but I have a hard stop at 2, so I just want to make sure we have enough time to answer everybody's questions. My name is Edwin Sun. I'm a housing planning and economic analyst. Welcome, welcome. Just in the middle of introductions, but I wanted to make sure you all knew that this office hours is being recorded. Um, but as I was saying, my name is Edwin Sun. I'm a housing planning and economic analyst in the city of Los Angeles. Um, I'm part of the team that wrote the regulations and is implemented the NOFA application on the NOFA website. And the purpose of these office hours is to help answer technical questions either about the NOFA regulations and how LAHD interprets certain provisions of the regulations, and also to provide any technical support if you're having trouble on the UNOFA platform. So I'll stop there. I do think it'd be helpful if I could get a sense of who's in the room. So if we can do some introductions of maybe what your name is, what organization you represent, and if you have any projects that you want to talk about, or a program that you're particularly interested in, feel free to say a sentence or two about that too. Do we have any volunteers?
Sure. This is Will Sager with Link Housing. We are an affordable housing developer. We are submitting a number of projects to the pooled alt new construction and the operating assistance programs. And Edwin and team, I'd just like to thank you for the of putting together such a complicated program.
It sure is complicated. Any other takers?
Hi, my name is Carly Zhao. I'm with Abode Communities, and so we are submitting a number of applications across different categories. But within my department, we're working on one project that's applying to the alt models preservation and operating systems pool, and very excited for this office hours Q&A session.
Thank you.
I'm Amy Turk with Downtown Women's Center. We have a very specific question about what it means to be in an LAHD portfolio and looking at operating subsidy.
Okay, we'll try to get to that. Anyone else want to introduce yourselves?
Yeah, I can introduce myself. My name is Wanjiko Gashiri. I'm with Alliant Communities, and we also have some projects that we're going into either the pooled or the multifamily one. And I do have some specific questions about the requirements. So just the threshold requirements, just trying to get some more clarity on those.
Okay.
And I'm driving, so I can't show my face, unfortunately, but this is Franny Hemelgarn from Risa Development Partners. We're also applying to at least the pooled multifamily, and again, have questions about what's specifically required, especially kind of sponsor, on the sponsor side.
Got it.
I can go next. My name is Jonathan Donis. I'm a development analyst at H Housing. We are applying for the multifamily pool, and I believe it's 2 projects that are going in. I have some general questions about the requirements around phase 1 and timing.
Great. For those of you who are just joining, first wanted to say that we are recording this session, and we're just going through and giving quick introductions, your name, the organization you represent, any projects that you want to share a brief description about, and the programs that you want to apply to. So I think the people who joined most recently are Tamar, Dana, and Matt. Do any of you want to introduce yourselves?
I can go ahead. I'm just eating a late lunch. Tamar Saunders with Midori Development and Consulting. I have a couple projects going in for preservation, some of the preservation sources and also the new construction. Had questions around GC experience and I forgot the other question, but it's related to the new construction one.
Thank you. Matt or Dana?
I'm Matt Mason, Abode Communities, working on the same project that Carly probably introduced, which is an alternative models preservation rehab of an existing property in our portfolio.
Great, welcome.
Hi, I'm Dana. I'm also with Brisa. So same projects as Franny, new family, multifamily, new construction. So thanks.
Okay, everyone else is LHD staff. I don't know if any of you want to introduce yourselves. If so, unmute. Otherwise, I will continue. So, who wants to go first with your burning questions? And let me preface by saying, all of our official guidance, technical clarifications are hosted on our Homes for LA NOFA webpage under the Q&A responses, which we are publishing once a week. So although I will try to, in this session, provide some insight into LAHD's thinking, I will not answer all questions in this session, and even the ones that I do answer, we reserve the right to provide further clarification in our official responses that will be on the website. So, any takers?
Hi, I wanted to pose a question. I did see a replacement unit determination question posed, and I was hoping to get some clarification on that. So for a rehab project that has no demolition of units, like the same unit count is remaining before and after, and in the 5-year look back period, there would be no demolition of units, is it still required to submit a net unit loss declaration and no net unit loss declaration?
I believe you do need to submit the declaration, but we put out guidance, I believe, yesterday clarifying that we will not ask for you to submit the entire RUD, and that is a significant cost savings because processing the RUD is a couple $1,000s per unit, and so we do need absolute certainty that there will be no demolition because those replacement unit determination requirements are local ordinance. So we are requesting the declaration of no net loss at least.
Okay, does that just need to be a submission, or do we need to wait to hear back from LEHD to proceed with the application?
That's a good question. Let me get back to you on that one. We will publish that answer in the next round of Q&As.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
Yep.
I can go next if
Yes, please.
you're ready. Okay. I just checked the third round Q&A and I didn't see my question answered there, so I will pose it here. For the Alternative Models Preservation Program, where you have the project in your portfolio already, there is no acquisition involved as part of the proposed project. Do we need to have an appraisal? There's no transaction at all. There's no internal transaction. There's no sort of act rehab going on, just a straightforward renovation, bringing it up to accessibility standards and other deferred maintenance needs. Do we still need an appraisal? Also along the lines of a cost saving measure for developers.
Unfortunately, we do still require the appraisal. We have received comments from multiple developers saying that this would be a cost savings that we should implement. However, if we are to provide additional LHD loans, we need to know that that is secured against collateral that is in the approximate valuation that you represent to us. And so the appraisal is required even for those preservation projects.
That makes sense. Can I ask another one, or sorry?
Please go ahead with your next one, and then we'll go to one
Okay.
Jiku.
Thank you. So these, assuming we get funded, and this will inform the budget to the project, will LAHD Alternative Models Preservation Funds come into the project during construction on a rolling basis to basically pay the bills as we go? So a project would not need a construction loan.
That is another very good question. I will say that the goal is to get the funding out to the project operators during construction, at the start of construction, if possible. You part of a developer's rationale in the past for not using LHD loans early on in the development, even though our loans are more subsidized, um, is because it has taken time to process a construction draw. And part of your consideration is that um, as our construction draws can only be released when we have certification that the project labor agreement or PLA requirements have been complied with in the previous draw. So we are still working to make that process as streamlined as possible. But our goal is to get the funding to you as soon as possible. I'm merely talking about some of the considerations that have occurred in the past and the challenge that we're trying to work through.
Okay, thank you.
So we do not yet know what that process will look like. We know what the existing process looks like, but we would our goal for you is to have a more streamlined process, and we do not yet know what that process will look like. I think Wanjiku had the next.
Yeah. Okay. I have two questions. Am I able to ask both of them? And then
Yes, please go ahead.
So the first one's a bit just straightforward. One of the questions asks for us to list all of the developments in the pipeline for, the lead developer, GC, et cetera. And my question is, how are you defining pipeline? Is it just LEHD projects? Is it just affordable projects? Or is it any type of, development that they're working on?
Our intention was any kind of affordable housing development that the sponsor has worked on. We have also received a great deal of public comment from developers saying, we have affiliates that work outside of Southern California. We work on other typologies besides affordable housing. Maybe they have developed single family housing, non-affordable, multifamily, commercial, all sorts of other things. We would actually welcome your recommendations, and we are, I hope you can tell, very closely monitoring your feedback. So if you have recommendations about limiting it to a certain geography, or you feel that some kind of typology outside of affordable multifamily rentals should be considered as part of your experience, we are happy to take that under advisement.
Okay, and would that be like feedback now that we get an answer for before we submit, or are you just saying in general? Because I just want to know what to request from our partners to, to put in our submittal.
So our goal is to implement sponsor underwriting and to be able to have a clearer picture or a clearer evaluation than we have had in the past of a sponsor's financial strength, track record on delivering projects on time and on budget, experience in doing the type of projects that we are contemplating under this NOFA. So we had intended a very broad definition, provide us every multifamily affordable housing project that you have worked on, that you are planning to bring into existence, even if it's fairly early in pre-development. We would like to know so that we can that is the use of that information. It's so that we can do the sponsor underwriting, and so we do need a broad look at the different projects that you've worked on. Again, We have gotten feedback from very large developers that this would go into the hundreds of projects if we were to ask for everything nationwide. And we are considering restricting it to maybe Southern California or California, but we could use your feedback to help us define that more.
Okay, no, that helps. Thank you. And then my second question is about relocation. I know that it's been answered, I think 1 or 2 times in the Q&A. And so I understand that the what you're saying is that regardless of whether it's, vacant or has occupants, that you want that relocation, assessment done. But my question is, if you have, say, a lot that has no buildings, no occupants, it's just vacant land, how far back does the relocation consultant need to look to confirm that relocation isn't needed? I think there's just, at least on our end and the folks that we're talking to get that done, there's just confusion on how they would go about that.
That's right. I believe there's a 5-year look back period, and that is the reason why we that is, among others, one of the reasons why we do need the relocation assessment, and not just a statement that you do not have relocation. I believe we did put out guidance clarifying that there is still a relocation assessment required. I am not an expert in relocation, so I can't tell you if it is just as expensive to do it when it's a very simple answer. But if you have feedback for us and would like us to further consider costs that we're not aware of for a very simple relocation assessment, for example, please let us know.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Evan.
I sort of lost track of who was next in line. Maybe someone can just go.
I had a follow-up to one of the last questions about the pipeline and applying that same logic to the portfolio for the conflicts of interest. The conflicts of interest form 2, document 2, seems to be only for the project that we're applying for. Is LHD okay with us submitting a comprehensive list of all of our properties that we've developed in the past in our format that we keep internally? Not even necessary.
So the question is about whether we can use a format that you have on file already and not wanting to recreate the wheel for the existing portfolio.
Correct. We have 100 projects, and it would take a monumental effort if we had to put it into some LHD format.
Let's make sure we have this question captured in today's transcript, and let me deliberate with our leadership and get back to you on that one.
Thank you.
Okay, got it.
Okay. Anything else, Will, or should we go to Tamar? I think you went off mute.
I'll pop back in later.
Okay. Tamar?
I had 2 questions as well. The first is for the preservation sources, the GC experience. Is it okay to have a GC that has just rehab experience, like multiple projects that they've rehabbed, multifamily residential, or do they need to have experience of just like ground up construction?
So I can tell you that we are trying to take we're not trying to take a black and white approach to looking at sponsor and development team experience. We are aware that we are moving into project typologies, program spaces that we have not done a lot of in the past, and that may indeed be new to some of the members of your development team. So if you have looked at our sponsor underwriting, we are trying to take as holistic a look at your development team as possible. So we do reserve the right to dock a few points. That's our approach. We would we may dock a few points from a development team that lacks direct experience in a space that that you are applying for. But we are not proposing to, on the basis of the example that you gave, eliminate your application. We would consider your GC to be a somewhat experienced GC who's done complex projects, but we would reserve the right to take a few points off during the sponsor underwriting.
So basically,
project and sponsor underwriting.
so the GC experience should match whatever you're proposing in the application, like whether it's a rehab or a new construction.
The ideal, you know, the ideal is that you have someone who is you know, architect, GC, in any other part of your development team, that they have experience working on that kind of project.
Yeah.
With
Okay.
that kind of funding source. But we recognize that those are not, you will not always find the ideal. So you may be docked a few points, but it would not be a black and white calculus. No.
For the ULA alt mods new construction, I know it was stated in the guidelines that they prefer projects that already have funding sources committed. Is that to say like projects that are basically ready to start construction and that this is the last source in? LAHD being the last source.
That is a correct interpretation. If you look at the totality of our scoring for that program, and for most of the programs, we are prioritizing projects that demonstrate entitlement readiness, that have all or most of their capital stack assembled. In particular, for the alternative models new construction program, where we are providing 80% of your total development costs, we think that is a very attractive proposition. And we really believe that with 80% of your TDC from one source, you should be able to complete your capital stack very, very soon after receiving a funding commitment from us. And we have provided some flexibility. We do anticipate that some of it can come in the form of a conventional loan. We are proposing that there would be a scoring boost for projects that come in with their own equity stake as well as part of the capital stack. But yes, you're interpreting it correctly. Our hope is for these projects to begin construction almost immediately upon our award.
Got it. Thank you so much.
Amy?
We conference that you couldn't apply if your project was not in the LAHD portfolio. However, in the occupancy NOFA, it says applicants must either have an existing housing project funded by the city or a commitment for a new housing project. And the project we want to apply for does not have LAHD money on it, but we do have two other projects that do. Do we still qualify to apply?
Can you repeat to me where that citation is from?
I see it in the term sheet for operating assistance.
That does ring a bell, but I believe we will be interpreting this fairly. I don't see the exact language that you're talking about, but our internal agreement, I can tell you, is that we would not this is a very limited bucket of funds, and we have a very large LHD loan portfolio that is struggling. So I'm pretty confident in telling you that specifically for the ULA operating assistance program, we would not consider any projects that are not already currently funded with an LHD loan. Okay, I remember the provision that you're talking about. We discuss the eventuality of having some kind of future operating assistance to a project that has received some other form of LHD assistance. But that's a statement about the perspective. It is not a statement about today. For a project applying today for the ULA operating assistance program, you do need to have a ULA loan already. And we are completely not open to funding projects with that program that are not already in our portfolio. Do you want to talk a little bit about the other two projects that you have in the LHD loan portfolio?
Well,
No.
we wouldn't be applying for anything new for those two projects. We're just an applicant that does have projects in the LAHD portfolio.
Got it.
And the particular site that needs occupancy support is, 2 blocks away, but is not in the portfolio.
Does that project only have operating needs, or does it have any capital needs?
No, just operating really, but
Okay.
it sounds like it would qualify for capital.
In theory, it would qualify for capital if there are serious capital needs, and we find it to be cost competitive. So I'm just trying to work with you to think of another program that you can apply to, but for operating, no, not for that project. Sorry.
Thanks.
Jonathan, I think you had your hand raised first.
Yeah, thank you. So this question is regarding the phase ones and soils reports. I understand the regulations state that a technical memo can come from an independent consultant if the reports have already been done and they're older than 24 months old. I just want to clarify, does independent mean the memo needs to be prepared by a different consultant from the one that prepared the original report?
I'm not sure what we meant by that. So we will take note of that question and get back to you on that one.
Okay. And one more question also related to phase ones.
Okay.
So our proposed development that's going in for an application will only occupy a portion of the site where the phase one was already completed.
Okay.
Can we use existing reports for the entire parcel, or do we need updated assessments that specifically address the portion of the site that we want to develop?
I think maybe I didn't catch all of that. So the phase one applied to the entire site, but you only wish to develop a portion of it, and then
Correct.
the phase one is no longer current, and you're asking if you can limit the new phase one to just a portion of the parcel. Is that right?
Essentially asking if I can use the old phase one that was for the whole site. So we have a larger site, but we're only applying for funding to develop a portion of it.
Okay, so I'm not really seeing maybe I'm not seeing the relevance of you only developing a portion of the site, since my understanding is that the phase one would have been conducted against the entire parcel.
Yeah.
So our guidance has been that if your phase one is no longer current, then we are allowing you to provide a technical memo from that independent consultant confirming that it is still current. That gets us back to your earlier question that I could not answer, which was how we define what makes that consultant independent. So I still need to get back to you on that one, but
Okay.
yeah, I'm just not seeing I'm not seeing what's determinative about only part of the parcel being developed. So if you have more clarification on that, I'm happy to have a little discussion.
Yeah. Let me get back to you on that then. But okay, appreciate the response.
Okay. And then Will?
Yeah, I have a whole slew of questions, but I'm gonna pick and choose the ones that I think are the biggest ones right now. One, and I'm gonna cheer like hell when you say there isn't, but I haven't seen anything about an application fee. Is there no application fee for this NOFA?
There is no application fee.
Yay! All right. Um, the other one is a little bit nuanced. For the tenant governance experience, can we show this experience with the experience of one of our principals while they were at a different firm?
Let me respond to that by pointing to another set of responses that we provided. And this gets back to this idea that we want to look at the development team's experience holistically. I believe in our first set of Q&A responses, we answered a, a question from a new developer, so a newly incorporated affordable housing developer, whose principals are comprised of very experienced affordable housing developers. And our response was essentially, yes, we will consider the experience of the principals. That being said, we would always reserve the right to say that, in that example, the organization is new. It does not have a strong credit rating. It does not have a strong background. I think that's a little bit less relevant to this example where we're just looking at in your case, the experience of the principal in leading tenant governance. So to give a short answer, we're trying to look as holistically as possible and recognize that your ability to meet the very many requirements within our NOFA regulations can only be done by bringing together a team. And so we want to read that as expansively as possible while having some guardrails about ensuring that there are guarantees, for example, that your organization is able to deliver on those things. So I don't have a hard or fast answer for you other than that we are trying to be flexible in interpreting these things. And in your application, please do flag that experience that your principal brings. We've asked for resumes at the individual level of development team members that you want to flag for us, and that's something that you really should be flagging and elevating and making very clear to us.
Okay. And I have one more and I'll save the rest of mine for if we have time. For projects such as operating assistance projects that are doing very minimal rehab, no more than the 250,000 per unit, and will not likely have an architect or find a general contractor with a great deal of affordable housing experience to take on a contract of such a small size. Is LHD okay with us going with a NA for something like an architect where we're not going to have an architect, or a TBD for a general contractor while we find a small general contractor that will be willing to take on such a small contract?
I'm gonna take a first stab at this, but Eric, correct me if I'm wrong, and your memory on this might be fresher than mine, but I believe that we made most of those fields. I believe we've already made most of those fields optional within the operating assistance application for the same reasons that you just discussed. Eric, are you on this call? Is that correct?
What were the fields again? I can double check while we're all on the call.
Architect,
General contractor, CASP, things like that. Where we're not actually doing any real rehab, it's more immediate repairs.
Okay. Give me like a couple minutes to take a look.
Okay, let's get back to this one. Did you have anything else, Will?
I have bunch of other ones, but I've already put them into the NOFA, so I'll let other people have crack at it.
Okay, Matt.
Thank you. Okay, so I have a multi-part question that are each part is somewhat related. The first question is not, it's a different project from the one I referenced earlier. If a project is applying for just operating assistance, no capital, and it has a future rehab planned with no funds from LAHD, would PLA be required for that project's rehab in the future?
No. So we specifically designed the operating assistance program to not trigger PLA requirements on projects over 40 units, which is otherwise a universal requirement for ULA funded projects over 40 units. But we specifically designed this program to not be a capital program. And so no, if you were to find some other non-ULA funding source for the capital improvements, the fact of you having received operating assistance from us on this project would not make sense to trigger the PLA requirements, and we would not ask you to do that.
Okay, perfect. As a follow-up, I understand that the operating assistance can be paired with other programs, including the alt model preservation program. Can a project apply for alt models preservation program and the emergency capital needs, the $250K per project, as a backup plan, not in addition to, but or one or the other, I should say?
You could. Maybe I'm not understanding if well, let me ask you, does the project only have about 250K of capital needs?
No, there is substantial additional need, and that is why the alt models preservation would be plan A, but sort of as a plan B, if for whatever reason it is too competitive and we do not receive the alt models preservation, can we also have an emergency capital needs $250,000 application as a backup?
So let me clarify that although we will welcome and we have in fact implemented within the UNOFA application that you can submit one single application for the alt models preservation program plus operating assistance. We will make those awards separately. So I would say that what you should do is to, if you want both, is to submit the single application. There's an option for you within the ULA alt models preservation program application to tick on a few extra sections and do the operating assistance application as well. It's just a small few extra sections. It's a much simpler program. And you can indicate to us in the narratives if you prefer one or the other, and one's a plan A and one's a plan B, and we will take that under consideration when we make the award. We will not necessarily make the awards together for those two programs. We are going to look at the amount and value of the applications that we've received for both programs. They have different requirements, they have different scoring. And if we see that there is a way to that works out for both of us, for the department, for our allocation of the funds and your project to award both or one or the other, we will make that determination.
Okay, understood on operating expense in combination with alt models, but emergency capital needs is separate from operating assistance, right? And
no, the emergency capital needs, that 250K is embedded within the operating assistance program.
Okay, understood then. Thank you very much. I
Yep.
appreciate it.
Okay, Franny?
Yeah, I have a couple, I think, of quick hitters. I think the first one is about the phase one and phase two. I know when we apply to the state programs, if we have a phase two that's within that freshness state, that we don't have to have a phase one that is also within that year. Is that something that the city would consider?
Yes, that is how we would interpret it.
Okay,
The phase two is much more robust than the phase one. So if you have
okay,
a fresh phase two, we're happy to accept that.
okay. And a phase one, we still submit, but if it's outside of the year, that's fine. Just,
That's right.
okay.
We care about the most recent one, and the phase two is much clearer, has much more information than the phase one.
Okay, and then my other question is about org doc requirements. I know we'll need to provide that for the sponsor, but is it also required for the entire kind of limited partnership or project entities um, for the projects?
Um, that's also one that we have wrestled with. Um, I would say you should, for good measure, provide as much background information about any of the members of the development team or co-sponsors who you wish for us to count toward your experience as we implement our new sponsor underwriting guidelines. So again, we are trying not to take a hard and fast, we're going to eliminate someone because a member of their team is merely a consultant. That's not the approach that we're trying to take. I'm just trying to share some insight into
Yeah,
and how LHD thinks about this, but we need strong guarantees that a sponsor and the development team are able to perform, can provide guarantees, can provide financial guarantees, has an asset portfolio that you can perhaps draw on if there are, one-time emergencies in the cash flow on your new project with us. We want to see, for example, that you don't have a bunch of loans maturing on your existing portfolio that would cause you to have financial problems. So the more that you can provide us with the background information that will enable us to look at your experience and score your experience, the better for your project and your application.
got it. Yeah, our project we're co-developing with, including us, two other organizations. So I think I'm hearing just the more the better. Is the same the case with like a general contractor or property manager that just kind of goes into the consideration of, if a general contractor has the right experience, that just strengthens our application? Or is it, and I'm sorry if I missed this, but is it required to have a general contractor and property manager at this stage?
These are pretty early in pre-development, so
Yeah,
we we are asking for this information as I believe most of the time it's optional.
yeah,
So correct me if I'm wrong, Eric, but most of these I believe are optional, and we do want the information if you have it already. Certainly, we do think that an experienced sponsor should be able to provide some narrative talking about your experience working with GCs, um, your thought process in selecting a GC. Maybe you've worked with a GC in the past and want to use them again for this project. The more that you can provide a certainty that you've done these things before, that you've had
yeah.
um, a similar project, and development and members of your development team that have done similar projects to the ones that you're applying for, that's really our North Star in underwriting these projects.
Got it. So it doesn't really lock us in, but it's more a demonstration that we have these relationships, we've done this stuff before, et cetera.
That's right.
Okay. That's all I have for now.
Coming back to what we were discussing before. So inside the application, in the development team section on the development team page, I'll say, we have it as mandatory that you have to fill out the entity name, applicant, team role, so on and so forth. And on the development team experience page, those are all mandatory as well. So we ask in 3 different sections: the lead developer experience, list the last 5 projects completed by the lead developer, that's mandatory. Same thing for the general contractor experience. And then same thing for others. We have other developer members experience, but you can pass through that requirement if you don't have any other developers in the development team. So that requirement only toggles on when you say, yes, you have other developers in the development team. And then for the pipeline, those only toggle on for those 3 types of entities when you say, yes, you have projects in the pipeline for the lead developer, general contractor, and everybody else.
And this is true even for the operating assistance application?
Correct.
Um, I remember us discussing that that the GC and the architect are likely less relevant for the reasons that have been stated. So we can publish clarifying guidance in our Q&A that you can in fact skip over those sections if you're an operating assistance applicant and you have reason to believe that those things are not relevant. So we can clarify that.
Right. And I would only ask that as you do that, just to make sure that technically the portal also agrees with you. Not seeing any other hands. I have a couple other questions.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. This one's a little bit interesting to me. Can you confirm that the only programs with priority population right now are the ULM alts?
That's correct. Alt models new construction and alt models preservation have the priority pool for CLT applicants or CLT or applicants with CLT participation in the ownership.
I think ALI, ELI is maybe what the priority population would be.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the priority pool. So you're talking about priority populations, ALI, ELI, and you're asking if alt models is the only one that has this?
Yeah, because there is reference to seniors, special needs, 3 bedrooms, but I have not seen a priority population for those populations, only the ALI, ELI, and the alt models.
I'm not sure if I'm understanding your question totally, but as far as the scoring, there are priority population scoring boosts for all of the new construction. It's in the base scoring. All of the preservation programs get a boost for having priority populations. And we define the priority populations as if you're serving anyone who's special needs or ALI, ELI, or seniors. Does that answer your question?
In halfway. The language it says is that you get points for being 10% above the minimum of each program's priority populations.
I
don't see any priority populations listed
I
for
see.
the program.
I see. Yes. So thank you for clarifying. So the alt models new construction and the alt models preservation have a 20% minimum for ALI, ELI. So that's a requirement. You cannot go below that. And so the scoring boost, as you identified, Will, is if you are going above that minimum. And so those are the only 2 programs that have that 20% minimum ALI, ELI.
Okay, so they're the only ones that point category applies to.
That's right. Sorry,
Okay.
sorry about the confusion. It
No,
is a very
I'm
abstruse definition.
I thought I assumed it was going to be like you're gearing up for the next round when there might be priority populations later. My next question is a little bit of clarification between the guidelines and the underwriting guidelines, or the NOFA and the guidelines, underwriting guidelines, about developer fee. The NOFA says that it will adhere to either the 9% or the 4% calculation of developer fee. But when you go to the underwriting guidelines, it references TCAT code that only goes to the 9%. I wanted to confirm whether the 4% application would be able to get a 4% fee.
I believe it should. I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to punt on this one. Maybe there was a decision that was made that I'm not aware of, but we'll respond to that one in our Q&A publish.
Okay. Great, thank you. And I have one generally about a scoring category about, and it came out in the Q&A yesterday, but I was about the second half, the cost effectiveness, and that LHD was not ready to opine on. My question is LHD going to opine on it before the application is due?
Yes,
Okay.
LHC will opine on that. So to just for everyone's reference, the question, I don't know if it was actually even your question, Will, but the question was about whether partial points will be awarded for the cost effectiveness criterion. So cost effectiveness is 10 points in the new construction programs, and half of those 10 points are going to be based on your TDC per square foot relative to all other applications in your pool. I hope that makes sense. I know it's a mouthful, but it's a relative ranking of we're going to rank everybody's TDCs by the size of your project. And you'll get the 5 points will be based on your ranking. The other half of the cost effectiveness score will be based on you get 0 of that 5 if you request the maximum that you are allowed. So, for the alt models new construction program, for example, you are allowed to ask for 80% of your costs. So you will get 0 points for that category if you ask for all 80% of your TDC. If you go below that, we are still making a decision about whether to award any partial points or just to zero it out if you don't, if you are asking for the full amount. So that's the guidance so far. We are still deciding about that second piece. Our next question, Wanjiku.
Hi, thanks. Just to kind of expand on the question before that was talking about the priority populations and how there's only 2 pools that have like dictated the 20%. And so for the other ones, because I'm looking at the scoring right now, and it applies for the pooled multifamily, ULA multifamily as well. And those ones don't have a minimum requirement stated. And so I know it's a question that was before, and in this newest Q&A, it was stated that it was already answered, but I'm still a bit unclear on that of how do you show that you are above the required priority population if on the multifamily and on the pooled sources, there's no dictated amount? Are you going more so by like the TCAC standards? Like, so say like if it's large family and you need 25% 2s and 3s, is it then 35% 3s? So kind of how are we getting those points for the other sources or for the other? Yeah.
That's right. Thank you for your question. I agree that what's been put out is not clear. So let's use examples. So if you're applying for the pooled sources multifamily program, there is 0 requirement for 3-bedroom units. There's 0 requirement for special needs units. There's 0 requirement for ALI, ELI units. So if you are to set aside 10% of your units as ALI, ELI, or special needs, or 3-bedroom units, you would activate that scoring criterion. You would get the 10 points. Is it 5 points?
5, yeah. Oh, okay. Perfect. Thank you for that. And then I lost my second question. I'll get back to it and then raise my hand again.
Okay. I can take one more question. I really have a hard stop at 2. So did you go off mute, Will? I'll take one more question from you.
Let me pick which one I really want to know the answer to. This is a project specific one with the scoring category for committed committed public funds or donated land, I believe it was. We have a long-term ground lease with the county that's paid out of residual receipts that will not show up in our TDC because it's a 0 for land value. Is that still going to be considered in that scoring category as committed for points?
I think it should, but I think it should, but look to our official answer when we answer all of these questions in writing.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, did you remember your question?
Yes, yeah. So I know that we also have to submit self-scores, and so I just kind of want to confirm that, there are categories that are very black and white, like is it higher highest or is it not? But with these other ones for cost effectiveness and feasibility and what have you, are we really just meant to make our best guesses? For example, we don't know what the scoring is relative to others for the TDC So is it just everyone submitting their best guess? And then that's that for the self-scores?
That's right.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, we do have to force you to go through the exercise of thinking about we need to see your thought process for how you went through the scoring, and we need to know that you thought very closely about the scoring as you put together your application. But I believe we've put this out in one of the rounds of our responses. We know that you do not have all the available information to accurately score. So just provide your best guess on whichever ones you do not have the full information for. You're not being graded on the score. You will be scored. We will score you. But we simply do need you as a threshold item to go through the same exercise as us as you put together your applications. I just want to start wrapping this up. I'll start by saying thank you all for your incredibly thoughtful questions and feedback, and want to say again that we really value the public comment that we've received, feedback and suggestions that we've received, and ask that you continue providing those to us. We will, of course, compile all the questions that we have answered and not answered today in our Q&A, and we'll publish that as soon as we're able to. And again, we are holding office hours every Tuesday and Thursday until the application window closes. So thank you all very much for taking the time to join us today. If any of you are joining my next meeting for our RFP, I'll see you there. And have a great rest of your day, everybody.
Thank you.
You LHD team.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.